All right, guys, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do the Revolve tool. Specifically, I'm going to show you the cylinder, the donut, and creating something that resembles a plate. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm not going to focus on any dimensions. We're going to make it as easy as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. Okay, I'm going to sketch on the front plane, so I'm going to start by getting rid of the right and the top plane. I'm not going to need those, and I'm going to change to 2D view. All right, I'm going to start with a sketch. When we're making a cylinder, originally we taught you how to make a circle and then extrude up to make a cylinder. To make this cylinder using the Revolve tool, it's going to look a little bit different. Okay, so I'm going to select the front plane, and the tool we're actually going to need to use is the rectangle tool. So I'm going to make a simple rectangle. I'm not going to worry about dimensions, like I said. You can focus on dimensions later on if you need to make a specific size one. Okay. With that rectangle done, I can finish my sketch. That's going to give me my 3D tools, and the Revolve tool is located right here. Okay. When I click on the Revolve tool, it's first, well, we're doing surface, or I'm sorry, we're doing solid, and we're creating a new solid, and then it's going to ask me to select the face and the sketch regions to revolve. So I'm going to click on the rectangle, since that's what I want to revolve. And then I need to click here to select the axis. So once I click there, notice it's not red anymore. Now I can click on the side or the axis I want to revolve around. Once I click there, it's going to revolve around that axis. So if I go into my 3D view here, and I zoom in, you can still see my original shape, that rectangle, and it's going around that center axis, or that line right there. Okay, and it's going all the way around because I have full selected. If I want it to be partially around, I can do in one direction, and I can choose how far I want it to go. So here's 30 degrees. If I want it to be a quarter of the way around, I can do 90 degrees. Halfway is 180. Okay, if I want to go all the way, it's 360. Okay, so you can choose how far you want to revolve around there, and you can even see that arrow there. If you click the arrow, it'll revolve the other way around. Now, in this case, it's not going to make it any difference whatsoever. I do want it fully revolved, so I'm just going to leave it with full, hit the check mark, and there you have a cylinder. Okay. The next shape that I wanted to show you was a donut. So this one's kind of fun. If you think of a donut, and I'm going to go back into my 2D view, I'm going to create a new sketch on my front plane. When you think of a donut, think about what it is that is going around. It's actually a circle. And so I'm going to create a circle here. And now with the donut, I don't have any edges that I can revolve around. So I have to create an axis in order to do that. And to create an axis, I'm going to create a line. And I don't want it touching it because with a donut, there's a space in between. So you got to have this space in between to revolve around. And so let's just create the axis right here. I'm going to hit escape so I don't keep drawing lines. Okay, this is the space in the middle of the donut, and then this is like the donut itself. Okay, so when I finish the sketch, go back to the Revolve tool. My faces and sketch region is the actual circle. That's what I'm revolving. Okay, I click here for the axis, which is my line. So I click on my line now. And now, if I change to 3D, you can see I have myself a donut. Now this one, when I look at it, I think, oh, maybe that's a little bit too much space. If I think that's the case, I just move my axis closer to my circle in order to change that, right? So if I finish and I say, oh, that circle's too big, that's really easy to fix. If I go back into Sketch 2, which is my donut sketch, and I actually move this axis this way, I just click and drag and then finish it. Now look at my donut has changed. That middle part has actually shrunk down. And so it's really easy to fix anything that you want to change by going back into the sketch. If I don't like my revolve, I can go back into my Revolve and change things. Okay, and so that's my donut. One of the things that's not on here that a lot of students ask about is how do you make like a sphere or a ball? When you think of what a ball is, if you were to cut it in half, what is a ball? It's half of a circle, right? And so if I create a sketch here, and I create my circle, okay, if I were to revolve that, right, you're getting like this donut shape. You're not getting a ball. So what you have to do is create an axis in the middle of it. Okay, and so I'm going to escape out. So I just drew this line here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make it a complete line so I can trim it. And so I'm going to trim half of that circle away. Now I have a half circle. Now you can already see when I revolve this around this axis, it's going to create that sphere. So I'm going to click on the shape. I got to then do my axis. And now when I finish, I go in 3D, you have that ball shape. Okay. The last thing I'm going to show you is the plate. This is very rudimentary but very simple way of making a plate. Obviously, if you were making a real plate, you would want to put a lot more details into it. So I'm just going to do a simple one just to kind of show you the idea of a plate. And you probably already have a good idea of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to create a new sketch on this plane. Okay, I'm going to actually use the rectangle tool. And this is going to be my plate here. And so this is half of my plate. So when I revolve it, it's just a rectangle, right? So it's like a thin cylinder. But to make it look more like a plate, if I were to zoom in really close, I can give it like ridges. Maybe something like this. Okay, so that will help it make it look more like a plate. Um, the other thing I could do later on is fillet the edges to make them smooth, more like a plate. But for our purpose, I'm just going to kind of keep it simple here. I'm going to trim out these lines here, and that's so when I trim these lines out, it's going to be one object. It's going to be one shape. That way, when I revolve it, it includes these pieces right here. If I don't do that, it's not going to include this when I revolve it. Okay, and so you're going to run into problems. So you want to trim out these lines. If I wanted to, I could also trim out these to make it look a little bit cleaner. But the reality is that's not going to make a difference after you revolve it anyway. Okay, so there's my shape. Now if I want to revolve it, click on the Revolve tool. Here is my face or my sketch region I want to revolve. My axis, I'm going to click here. I want this to be my axis. And now you can actually see the top is really flat, but the bottom has those ridges like you would see on a plate. Now, obviously, very simple type of plate, no one wants these sharp edges on a plate. You could always fillet those down later. But that kind of gives you the idea of a plate. Now, when I finish, no plate is really like flat. There's an indent in there so your food doesn't pour over. One of the things that you can end up doing is using the shell tool. If I use shell, it's going to take out and leave some of those edges there. Now my shell is pretty small here. Let's see if 0.2 is better. Well, now I'm just struggling here. So I guess I have to go smaller than 0.1. Let's see here. Make sure I'm not messing this up. Okay, so I have the top plate, shell, point one. There you go. So my shell was too big. So now that I have 0.05, Notice that it's taken out that, and now that kind of looks more like a plate. And when I finish it, there's my plate. Now, the fillet tool or the chamfer tool are located right here. You can smooth those edges out, or you can make them at an angle. Those are options as well to get a little bit more fancy with your plate. But in general, right, you have your ridges on the bottom, you have your ridges on the top. That looks kind of like a plate now. And all that was a bunch of rectangles. So what you really need to do with this is explore this tool as much as you can. See what kind of shapes that you can really revolve. If you're taking, if you want to hide some of these, and I'm going to delete this. Notice that I have an error here. If you want to hide shapes, you can hide them down here in the part area. So like if I want to hide all the things except for the plate, I just click on those eyeballs, and now I just have my plate. Or I can just hide whatever it is I want to hide. So if maybe the cylinder I don't really want, but I want the other three, great, I can hide that. That's the same thing with your planes over here, right? You don't need your planes or your origins if you're just looking at it in space. Okay? And that's the Revolve tool.